Gerstenmaier. I am a principal and senior landscape architect at VHB Engineers in Richmond, Virginia. And I started my own firm back in 1990 as a 30-year-old man. Here I am now, 62 at the end of my career, talking to you. So Kori, I got into my career by total random chance. I was not real focused in high school. Didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. So I went to a 2-year school in Ohio called the Agricultural Technical Institute. I thought I was going to become a landscape contractor, to be honest with you, because my grandfather owned a large landscape construction company in Cincinnati, Ohio. But when I was at that 2-year school, my first year, my freshman year, I had to internship. That was part of their program. You had to go work for someone. So the spring of my freshman year, I went out to Colorado and worked for a large landscape contractor in Denver, Colorado. And when I was there, going to work every day, I realized I was driving out on the trucks with the crews, and we had to get there super early. And then noticed guys driving in with their coats and ties. The landscape architects were coming in at like 8 or 8:30, and I was like, man, I'd rather draw the plans instead of implement the plans. So I changed my major and then transferred to the Ohio State University, and then became a landscape architect. It's funny you asked that. I have 2 boys; they both have asked that. I did like to doodle a little bit in art and whatnot, but I wasn't an advanced artist, or I didn't have my parents thinking, oh, he could be an artist someday. But I had a little bit of proclivity at it. How's that? A good question. One, at Ohio State, they really trained us in hand drawing, a lot of hand drawing. We used to have to do, as funny as it sounds, we had all different types of design courses and technical courses, but it was good for us because it really made you master the clarity of just printing the alphabet, because your drawings had to be really concise. So that was one thing, just a lot of drawing. We also had quite a few classes teaching us how to perspective draw and color render. And I, in particular, had one professor that just kind of took me under his wing and really taught me how to render with color pencil and marker, which is used fairly often in landscape architecture. So that's really where I learned that at first. And then when I was first out of school, you just had to get going and do a lot of hand sketching and whatnot. So I didn't really start CADing with the computer, just to show you my age. That did not really kick in till the start of my career, as the first version of CAD came out. So we had to learn that too. And that was just self-taught. Mine actually is trash paper, felt tip marker, color pencil, and add markers to really freehand sketch. But I say that, but then I do like to get it into CAD where I can get more concise. But to really start dreaming and sketching, I like to do that I call it trash paper. The proper term, I guess, is trace paper. But just rolls of trash paper. One thing I also have just done throughout my career, and to the point I think at times clients think, what is he doing over there? But I do doodle quite a bit around the edges of a notebook or on just notebook paper through meetings. And when I was younger, I did a lot of that. So that's what kind of honed my just sketching skills. Again, I know enough to be dangerous and have made a career out of it, but I'm not an accomplished artist.
Mm-hmm.
probably problem solving and being able to come up with creative ideas to to solve a problem and have a client happy with a solution that they couldn't probably have thought of because their mind doesn't work that way. That's why they hire me. So it would be really to solve a difficult design problem and do it with a functional solution, but also a creative one that is pleasing to look at and use when it's done. Have come across it recently. It was just finished a project in front of the Science Museum of Virginia. Trash paper sketch. So tomorrow, just to explain that process, Kori, that one took a while. You know, the designs often take some time to. You gotta. It's just like any other form of art, I guess. You're either in a flow or you're not. And that one, at first, I wasn't. Finally, after quite a bit of sketching and quite a bit of frustration, something clicked to me. It just felt good as I drew it, and I color rendered it and brought it to the guy. I did it on a really large piece of paper too, Kori. It's kind of fun. When I email it to you, you'll get a scan of the whole thing. You won't get to appreciate the size of it until I can show. I'll also take a picture of the trash paper original that's hanging in my office, just still on my door. But you know, it's probably 5 feet long. But to put that in front of the client and have it color rendered with color pencil and whatnot, he was able to really go into it and walk through that space and understand it, and he really liked it. So that was fun to come up with that design, get my team to turn it into construction drawings, and then watch it get built. So the fence is still around that project, but it's going to be removed in a couple of weeks, and then you and everybody else will be able to go in there and walk through it and enjoy it. A couple of things. One, as a designer, you're always worried, especially when I was younger in my career and didn't have as much confidence. I was always worried, oh my God, are they not going to like it? Are they going to throw me out of the room? So that's always a worry. Anytime you ever present a drawing, are they going to like it? And are they not? And that's always that's always a fear. And every now and then you do get negative feedback, and you just have to roll with it. Sometimes something that you believe really firmly in as a design, they might not like, and there's a fine line on trying to sell them on it and get them to understand what you're trying to convey to them. And there's times you have to move on, even though you think it's a good design. If it's not clicking with them, you just can't force it down their throat. Now that's my attitude. There are some designers that are like, no, this is a proper design. They hired me to present it, and it is my job to get them to where I need them to be. But I have never been that way. If I get negative feedback, I try to take it and produce something that makes them happy. In fact, I'm designing a pool right now for my backyard in my house down in Virginia Beach. And it's funny being my own client because, again, in design, everything, not everything, but most things are so subjective. Um, and it's almost easier to be able to present it to a client and get their feedback and tweak it or them be happy with it versus me being my own client, because you can end up second guessing yourself or doubting what you're doing. But yeah, I'm doing that right now for the pool down in Virginia. You've got all kinds of good questions here, Kori. I don't have anyone designer from the past. I mean, other than the founder of my profession, who's Frederick Law Olmsted from the the late 1800s. I mean, he still gives me inspiration on how he approached design in public spaces. So that would probably be my biggest influence in my career. And then just actually, it was a developer I worked for early in my career named Doug Woolfolk, and how he was a good influence on me. He just always demanded excellence in his design and construction, the quality of his construction. If he did not feel something was right, he'd rip it down and redo it. I mean, one time when I was working for him, that's probably 28 in my career, he had a building under construction in Chesterfield County and had most of the roof framed up, and it was the architect just didn't get the pitch of the roof right. It was too flat, and he to his expense, it was like $100,000. He removed it all because it was subjective yet again. The architect didn't do anything wrong, but he did not like how it looked, and it did not look right. And he ripped it off and had it redesigned and built to his liking, and it looks better. So he just kind of taught me get it right. Just because it's wrong doesn't mean you have to live with it necessarily. If you have the means to change it, you did. So. Boy. Yeah, my generation's just so different than yours, Kori. The biggest advice I would give from just my path is you got to be willing to, one, start out poor. I can remember lamenting to my father on the phone, I could make more money as a waiter than I could working the job I was in. But, he told me I chose that path and I just need to suck it up and bear down and keep my nose to the grindstone, which I did. If you're willing to put in the time and effort and just know there's a path for you, do it. But if you're wanting instant success and money, the design profession is not it. You got to pay your dues. Even if you're a superstar in school and at the top of your class, that usually can get you hired into a larger, more well-known firm, but you still start at the bottom. So it's just if this is a profession that's a passion, you just got to be willing to put in your time and pay your dues, and make sure you enjoy where you are, even when you're suffering at the bottom. That you're young and you got your life ahead of you, and not wish your life away. How's that? This is a good conversation right here. Okay, so here's how it goes. What I found in my life, because I'm not good at math, and like I told you at the start of this, I goofed off in high school. So I mean, in fact, Kori, that was part of what made me get on the path I was on, because I went to a small school university up in Ohio called Akron U, and the counselor really had an attitude with me that I hadn't taken enough math. Like, you ought to be happy on me coming to your school, let alone scolding me. So I didn't have a strong math background, and so here's how it goes. Engineers are the best in math, so a civil engineer has chosen that profession because they're good at math and they're very analytical. An architect has to be good in math, but not as good as an engineer. And then I chose landscape architecture specifically because I did not have to get into physics and all that stuff. I just had to take a certain level of math and geometry and whatnot to get through it, but not have it mastered. Because honestly, once you're in the profession, even architects, there's just not that much math that you have to do that's not beyond your calculator and programs. So if you can just slog through that enough to just pass the class, that's all that matters.